3 homemade sweetened condensed milk recipes. Which one is the best? Now you can just absolutely do everything in the world with sweetened condensed milk, but what if you don't have any? What if you've run out? What if the stores are empty? What if you live in a country that does not have sweetened condensed milk? Now I tried 3 different recipes for homemade sweetened condensed milk. So I'm ready to do a taste test and show you which came out better. Now number 1 really came out nice and thick and creamy. But how does it taste? It tastes pretty good, but it still doesn't quite have that sweetened condensed taste that you expect. How about number 2? It definitely has that taste, but look how thin it is. So I don't know how well that's going to work in your recipes. Now how about number 3? Now it definitely has that taste. It tastes really good. But look how thin it is also. Now this had butter added to it. I don't know if a little more butter would have made a difference or if it was a little colder. This did not have any butter, and I might go back and try and add some butter to it and see what it does. But let me go through these 3 different recipes with you. Okay, now the quickest and fastest method is in kind of all the old cookbooks that I got when my kids were in school. So we're starting out with 2/3 cup of sugar, 1 cup of dried powdered milk, 1/3 cup of boiling water, and 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Now I'm just going to kind of give this a stir and then give it a good mix with my immersion blender. Okay, and then for good measure we'll give it a teaspoon of vanilla. Then mix that up real good. Okay, now next we're going to try some evaporated milk with sugar. So after all, what actually is sweetened condensed milk, but sweetened evaporated milk. So let's see how this turns out. I'm using a whole can. I'm just going to whisk in this sugar until the sugar is completely dissolved. Now you need to be careful about whisking the sugar in, and don't whisk too long and too vigorously because you're going to have a lot of air bubbles. So I did switch over to a spatula, and now I'm going to bring this just to a simmer, and once it comes to a simmer and I know all the sugar is completely dissolved in it, I'm going to pour this into this jar and we'll check on it a little bit later. And we're going to let this cool off and we'll give it a taste test a little bit later. Okay, now for our final recipe, which takes much longer to do, we're starting out with 2 cups of milk. And I want to kind of eyeball how big my pan is because I want to cook this around 30 minutes or till it's reduced in half. And then I'm going to add my sugar. Now I'm going to put this on medium heat. I'm going to whisk this until the sugar is dissolved and it comes to a simmer. And then I'm just going to keep it on a simmer, just occasionally stir it. I don't want to stir it too much until it's reduced in half. And like I said, that should be about 30 minutes. And we'll see if the extra work we go into this tastes any better. Okay, Okay, now this has simmered for 30 minutes. And the only way I really know to tell is if this is reduced in half is to just measure it. So I'm going to just pour it into here and see if I should have about a cup. So let's see what we've got. Okay, so I marked my cup so I can see it really clear. And it is just maybe a hair over a cup, but I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to add a stick of butter. I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter to it. This recipe is supposed to make a cup and a quarter. So by the time I have a cup of my finished sugar and milk and I add this quarter cup of butter, I should have a cup and a quarter. Okay, and just like all the others, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to it so we can have a true taste test. But I'm going to have to let this cool off before we can even compare them. Now I'm going to let this cool at least, 15 minutes before I try to put this hot jar into the refrigerator. Okay, now let these all sit in the refrigerator overnight. And this one, you just cannot get out of the jar. Definitely going to have to add some hot water for that one. This one is pretty thin. But it absolutely tastes like sweetened condensed milk. Now this one had butter in it. Let me stir this up a little bit. That one tastes. And this one really tastes like sweetened condensed milk. The butter made it thicker, but even though it tastes better, it's thicker. It's a no-go for me because it takes 30-45 minutes to make. Now this one was made with evaporated milk and the sugar. And it tastes, it's a little thin, but I could easily add butter to 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter to this to make it thicker. Now this, I don't know if I want to mess with that or not. I guess it might work in a pinch. Homemade cooking is easy, saves you money, healthier for you and your family, and tastes great. Like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss any more homemade cooking and Texas recipes.